Hey, welcome to Clarksville Vibe the show where we tell the stories about people here in Clarksville, Tennessee who make this place the greatest place to live in America. Well, hey, this is the one you've been waiting for. I'm your host, Kevin Kennedy Jr. Today, I've got Kevin Kennedy Sr., the man, the myth, the legend, the attorney, the shiny jewelry, the horse farm, the cowboy boots, the whole deal. We're going to go from childhood all the way up to today. I'm going to try to pull out some meaningful nuggets. Obviously, just a ton of wisdom over his decades of business and relationships in this community. And I'm sure we'll tell some jokes along the way. Thanks so much for catching this show. While you're here, go ahead and stop, like, subscribe, check out some other episodes. But, I don't want to waste any more time. So I'm Kevin Kennedy Jr. I've got my dad, the TikTok legend, 1.5 million followers, attorney, Kennedy Law Firm, and so much more. We're going to get through this episode. But, Dad, thanks for finally jumping on.
Good to be with you. I'm glad to see this, and thank you all for watching. Hope we can share some words of wisdom today that'll enlighten you, inspire you, fire you up, and go to the next level. Quite frankly, Case, when we're on this set, he's Kevin Jr. I call him Case. I call him KC. One quick story.
You also call me Big Dummy.
I did on occasion.
Yeah.
And your brother's got that too. But he was about 5 years old, went to school, and he came home and told his mother, he says, "Mom, I want to change his name." When he was born, we called him K.C. Kevin Chambliss, KC. And he told his mother, "I want to change my name." I said, and she came and told me, and I said, "Well, what's the deal?" She said, "Because everybody was asking him, 'Are you Kevin Kennedy's son?'" And he said, "Yeah, I want to be called Kevin Kennedy." So he's a little fella. So he picked that up, but he's still KC to me, or Case or whatever. But that's the real story behind.
And 33 years still living in the shadows after 5.
Yeah,
after
it's
5
been a
years
wonderful
old.
Ride for the young man.
Yeah.
He's enjoyed every second of it.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
had the benefit of all these years of wisdom. Go ahead.
Here we
If
go.
you
We're
got a question.
already blurring the lines of who's the host and who's the guest, which I'm sure
Testify.
will happen many, many more times. But okay, let's start with this question.
Go ahead.
People see where you are now. They see the success. They see the law firm. They see the real estate. What they may not know is you're really just a small town boy that grew up in St. B. Mom worked at a bank there downtown. Dad was a barber. Grew up on a small horse farm. Big family, lots of first cousins, but didn't have this success, didn't have the stuff your entire life. So tell us a little bit about growing up in St. B and how your childhood impacted your decisions as you started to become a businessman.
Here we go. Well, when I look back over my life, some of the turning points, we were there at St. Bethlehem. You'll kind of find it kind of interesting. Very modest income. That's a nice way to say real broke. But, when you become in sophisticated circles, you say we were of modest income. Now,
and by modest income, you told me you used to jump in the shower before you went to sleep at night. Just because you didn't have air conditioning.
We didn't have air conditioning. I was 23 when I left the home, and we didn't have air conditioning, so I thought I'd be creative. And you go in there, it was so hot you couldn't breathe. So I would jump in the shower, get soaking wet with my shirt, and jump in the bed, and the bed would get wet, and it would cool you through the night. So we did have a fan. So that's some of the heat experiences. And when I think about heat, hello, come in, are you listening? When I was in the hayfield as a boy, you say, man, is there another way out? When I was mowing grass on all those, you say, is there a better way of life? And I remember it well. So heat has always been a big deal.
It drove you inside.
And then food, again, I didn't need all that food, but I do remember there were several times, man, I'd love to buy something, but really didn't have the funds. One of my most interesting stories, I never had a store-bought suit till I was 28 years old. Now, I was always sharply dressed because I had secondhand clothes from some cousins that were in a more prosperous state. But with that, some lady from the church said, a new lawyer needs a new blue suit, and that was my first store-bought suit. What a great investment she made in me. I cherish her. Name was Mabel Redding, the power of the church, the storm of life, back Okay, Kev, I was there in Vacation Bible School. Here's how it went. The preacher was up there, and he said, do we have a volunteer to come up here and lead? I was young. I don't know if I was dumb. I was bold, and they gave an opportunity, and that's kind of the story of my life. I seized the opportunities as they came before me. I remember raising my hand, and I went up before the church, and we were singing, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Powerful. 5 years old. I testify about it today. Let me back up. I'm on a roll. Don't stop me.
Well, I'm going to stop you here in a minute.
It was too good. Let
you
me
going
tell
somewhere?
This. I'm going somewhere.
All right.
When I was admitted to the United States Supreme Court, I was in front of the most powerful court in all the world. I was standing there. They were introducing me from Tennessee. And when they went to introduce me, I could still hear, it'll almost bring tears to your eyes. I could hear in the back of you could hear my voice crack because it's that profound. I could hear and see this little boy, Kevin Kennedy, that got his first public appearance singing a song. And I could see myself when I was in front of the most powerful court in the world. I testify to you, it's all true.
And that Vacation Bible School is at Spring Creek Baptist Church.
Yes.
Right there on Trenton Road, right in the heart of St. B.
Yeah.
And your first job, you grew up there going to Spring Creek Baptist Church. My grandmother, Miss Sybil,
Yep.
she even on her deathbed told me how you had perfect attendance all the way through because she drug you there more times than you wanted to be there. But eventually you got your first job there at Martin's IGA.
Yes.
Tell us about that time.
Well, at the time, I was 14. My cousin had been working there, and he got a chance to get a job at the bank. There was only one job available in St. Bethlehem, and that was at Hunter's IGA. And he told, it gets to the power of relationships. When I was a boy, when I'm a man, never underestimate the power of relationships. I built my life around it. I've taught it. It's one of the secrets of my success. Yeah. Always building relationships. And even as I testify to you today, I'm thinking about the decisions of helping people. How do I help so many? I have so many relationships. I'm very sensitive to that. So I walked to the grocery store, and I remember walking to this day. I've reflected over it a bunch. And I said, Lord, give me the words to say to help me get this job. I remember, and I walked, it's about a mile from our house, to the grocery store, and I got the job. And I remember going back home, and I was walking tall because I knew that job would change my life forever. Big money, hello, come in. $12 a week. Hello, come in. But all I needed was just a little start. I've said it many times, I can do a lot with a little. You can't do anything with any. And I got to work that job. Mr. Martin bought it from Mr. Hunter, and I was there 8.5 years. I sacked groceries when it was cold. I sacked groceries when it was hot. I developed my personality working at the grocery store. And I remember one day I was out sacking groceries, and they were building a building across the street of Wilma Rudolph. And little did I know today I would own that building. That's the Kennedy Law Firm on Wilma Rudolph. Wow. And here you go, Case. I used to see some very prominent people would come in the grocery store. I saw their magnificent cars and their diamond rings and their upbeat, and I'll never forget, I said, man, I'd like to be like those guys someday. And they inspired me, but here's what they didn't tell, Case. Dave Davison was one of my heroes. We still go to church together. I said, Dave, you inspired me, but you didn't tell me the stress that goes with fancy cars and diamond rings. So you can take that for whatever it's worth.
So you tell us a little bit about how you were inspired. I remember you when I was a teenager working jobs here and there. You were always on me about dress sharp, talk to everybody, look them in their eye. When did you know that was going to make a difference? Because when you're 14 and 15 years old, from what you've told me, you were taking those advantages and opportunities before anybody else even knew what to do.
Yes.
And so for our younger listeners out there, even people in my shoes now who are looking at career advancements, what would you say to them as the opportunities that are there in the day-to-day rhythm of what they're doing already?
Yeah. Well, I realized working at the grocery store, I like to have people speak to me. I like to speak to people. And I recognize if you would develop a friendly personality, all of a sudden you created an atmosphere around yourself that people wanted to be with. They love to see you. I love to see them. And so I developed my personality at the grocery store. And so
And
as
do
a
you feel
child,
like that took intentional effort?
yes, it did. Because as a child, I would run and hide behind my mother's skirt. People would say, well, come here. They used to say I was a cute little boy, and they'd say, come up here, and I would run and hide in my mother's skirt. So the truth is, and I've had 165 different lawyers work under and train, 1,000 different interns have worked and trained. And the truth is, Case, you can develop that personality. We can take some shy people and we can encourage them and we can push them and we can inspire them, put them in a positive environment. You turn them loose. Now, is it true some people have a little more natural talent than others? Yes. But can I take that raw diamond, polish it, chip it, and break some records that shocks everybody around? Absolutely, unequivocally.
Well, I think that's a powerful word for anybody who's listening, and I think that's true. You went from there, and you didn't become a lawyer next. You kind of got into all kinds of things. You were selling cars. You were substitute teaching.
I didn't know I was that smooth a talker, really. I'd been sacking groceries, and people, believe this or not, Case, all these great people, they wanted to tip me. Well, I wouldn't take a tip. I said, no.
I don't believe that.
I know. I can't believe it now either. But I didn't because that wasn't in my mind. I wanted to give. And the truth is, my entire life, I wanted to get the truth today. The reason I'm over here after pulling a full day, somebody's listening to me today is going to get some wisdom, and you're going to take it and help your family, help your business, help your community. Do I believe it? I absolutely. A rising tide lifts all ships. And I'll back up. The greatest foundation that I ever had was at the church. And I realized my personality was developed because I was in a social setting. I realized when I got to the law school, I could talk. I'd been in front of the church. I'd been in Sunday school. I realized when I was doing my jury trials, I hope you're listening. I taught Sunday school for 30 years at First Baptist every week. What are you doing, Kev? You're preparing. You're telling. You're explaining, and you're closing. Hello, come in, turn him loose. Let me have somebody to share with. And I took that to all new levels when I did my jury trials. I spoke just this year. I won the National Trial Lawyers Golden Gavel Award. Wow. Clarksville, Tennessee, a boy that made $12 a week. Come in. That was this year, 2023. Shocked me, shocked the lawyers, got to speak. And it was, I got the social media for the entire nation, trial lawyers. And it was a hush moment. And they all wanted to know, how much money are you making, Kev? They all think you're making all the money with TikTok. And I said, the truth is, I've given all the money that I make on TikTok, I've given it for the advancement of the cause of Christ. Kevin, why would you do that? Because you can't outgive God. Kevin, do you really believe that? I know it. I'll live it. I'll teach it. Will you learn it? Will you use it? Every man must stand on his own. And they say, all that dude wants to do is just testify and preach. Well, no, I want to share. If I have the secret that I can help you and your family, I give it away. Does it affect me if there's lots of millionaires that learn from me? No, I'm really better off because we can help make my community better. When Austin Peay calls, says, hey, I can't raise this. I need this. I said, well, let me call my friends. Let me call some people that are underneath here that have trained under me. Some of those, I was at the Candlelight Ball. We're taking a diversion. And the lady came up and spoke to me. And I said, hey, she said, did you know I was one of your interns and clerked under you? And I said, well, I'm so glad to see you. Well, hello, her husband said, she's on the Court of Appeals. I was ashamed that I didn't catch that. Yeah. But I was proud that I had the moment in their life to make a difference. So those words will go on long after I'm gone. Lots of lawyers have come through there. And you became a doctor. Your brother became a doctor when you came through there. And there's others. And it's fun, exciting, and I like to give.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. I want to hear a little bit more about it later on. But I feel like your childhood in Clarksville, you, as I said, you were substitute teaching. You started teaching at Austin Peay. And then at some point you decided to go to law school. But you still didn't have everything you needed to go to law school.
Wait a minute.
Because from what I remember, you're catching rides to Nashville. You're going with Pam Boyd. You're going with John Carney.
Yep.
It still wasn't the easiest carpooling in Nashville. Still wasn't the easiest journey getting through law school.
Let me give you the formula. It's called El Broco, don't you know, so you better ride, with somebody that'll give you a ride to the law school. What do I remember about that? I got a master's degree. I was teaching at Austin Peay at the age of 22. I saw that I could break some records, and I started breaking records at 18. How do you break records? I learned how they do it, and so that I said it and said, here we go.
Well, I have to stop you there because there was a strategy of how you prepared your curriculum at Austin Peay that I think you need to confess to at this point.
No, we can't tell everything on here, but I'll tell that one. I'd never had an education class at Austin Peay, and so I got the opportunity to get the master's, and I said, Kev, it was hard to get into law school then. It's not hard today. But it was really hard then. And only 3 got in from Clarksville, and we all had masters. I was leveraging then. I said, if I've got a master's, it'll help me. So they gave me an internship over there, a fellowship. And so I taught for 1 year at 22 and said, Kev, this history is so much. How you going to do this? I never had education, barely knew what a syllabus was, syllabus. So some of y'all know more than I did, but I was teaching the class, so listen. So they had a doctor teaching the same thing at me at 8 o'clock. I was teaching at 9 o'clock. So I said, I want to see what that dude's putting up. So I'd go in and listen to him. And so then they said, well, Kev, what about it? I had the first class on the entire university closed out every time I taught. Hello, does that mean you were popular? So they called me in one time and they said, Kev, said, Mr. Kennedy, can you explain your enormous popularity on the campus? I said, oh boy, here I'm under fire now. All these dudes are smart and he's the head honcho. I said, well, I think, sir, they probably identified with my youth. I was a pretty quick thinker and we went through it. And I love Austin Peay today. It's a wonderful thing. We got to win the Spirit of Austin Peay award just a couple of years ago.
And who would have known going in and listening to somebody teach at 8 a.m. and then taking notes there and turning around and spitting it out at 9 a.m. to a whole new people.
Yeah, it was real good.
Well, you used the same method with Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins and did the same thing.
Zig Ziglar changed my life. I listen to him every day. Here's one of my techniques, if y'all want to say.
You also made me listen to him for an entire year because I had a bad attitude.
Learn from it. Teach your kids. We'll see how good your kids turn out. When I get up,
they're your grandkids.
I punched on the big tape, and we would listen to it for an hour while we're trying to get ready. Rhonda, my wife, she was resistant. And then Rhonda caught the vision. And then she saw the power. And I heard Zig Ziglar talk one time, and he said, Muhammad Ali was born into poverty. Franklin Roosevelt had infidel paralysis. What's your problem? Hit me like a ton of bricks. Wait a minute. I got to keep testifying. I'm there with Zig, 30,000 people. These people are excited, going crazy. What are they so excited? It was called Dream Weekend. I went to the back of the building. They had a Corvette. I was driving a Corvette. Hey, me and them are together. Then there was a 4-door Mercedes. That machine was bad to the bone. Next to it, hello, come in. You go to Hollywood and Las Vegas, the Rolls Royce. And they had Prevost motors. So I had caught an inspiration. I said, man, that Mercedes. I come back to Clarksville. I was in the Atlanta Dome. And I said, I'm going to use this, set the goal, Dream Weekend. I'm going to buy them. In 30 days, I'm driving the 4-door Mercedes. In 3 years, I'm driving the Rolls Royce. True story. Hello, come in.
So you set the goals, and then you put the action plan in place.
Yeah, and you really don't even know how you're going to get it done. You don't know how you're going to get it done. I got to tell a little quick one on the Rolls. I'll come back to it. But, one of the lawyers was working for went to a Christmas party in Nashville, and there's some big leaguers up there, and they said, I need somebody that can handle major litigation in middle. He said, well, you need to meet Kevin Kennedy. He said, well, who is Kevin Kennedy? He said, well, he's 40 years old, and he drives a Rolls Royce. He said, I want to meet this guy. So we went up there. It was 30 days after when I bought the rolls. And, of course, I said, Lord, you really want me to do this? Had good credit, and I bought it. Didn't really have the money, bought the credit. 30 days later, I meet this man, powerful man, and he wants me, hires me. In 90 days, we had raised enough to pay for the Rolls Royce.
Wow.
So, but what's the moral of that story, Kevin? The moral of that story is you got to step out of the boat. If we're still sitting in the boat, no, I'm scared. I can't do that. I can't see this. But he would have never given me that opportunity had I not stepped out. So that's been the story of my life many times on all these. Let me say this.
I want to ask you a question. Hold on, because there's a story that I know that other readers might not know.
I can't tell every story, but go ahead.
Well, tell the story about your first book.
Yeah.
You're going to write a book. You got no money. You got no money to pay for all these books.
How do you know that?
But you come up with some strategy. You're going to
good.
write a book. You're going to get somebody else's money.
Yeah.
All right, so tell the story.
So anyway, here I am, and I knew all these lawyers are getting famous, but they all wrote a book. So maybe I better write a book. But Kev, you're not a writer. And so I walked through the library, and I loved horses. When I was studying for the bar exam, I had a reinvigoration. I'd study for 12 hours, and then I'd go and look at the magazines of the horses. Got inspired. I walked to the library, and I picked up the book. Guy wrote a horse book on the walking horse in 2 seconds. I said, I can teach that dude a lesson. Well, how do you say it? God gave it to me. The horse on the front of his book had already died. I said, I'll put the live horse on the front of this book. And here, with that, I was gone. Don't hold me back. So I went around asking all these horse trainers, who's the richest man in the entire industry? And they came back and said, that's clearly Claude Crowley. I said, where does he from? They said, Salem, Missouri. I said, well, I want to talk to him. They said, yeah, everybody in America wants to talk to him. And so somehow I got his phone number. I want you to hear the conversation, got to his wife. You get one chance. If you're not real good, it's over. And I got him on the phone. I said, Mr. Crowley, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm Kevin Kennedy, and I've written a book. And I want to make your horse the #1 horse in the nation. Never had that speech before. And he said, keep talking. I said, in this book, it's a hardbound cover. I'd like to put your horse on the front cover, and it'll be around long after you and I are gone. And he said, well, I know it's going to cost. I said, Mr. Crowley, have you ever really enjoyed anything in your life that didn't cost you something? He said, keep talking. And so what do you ask a rich man to put his picture on the front of the book? I wanted his horse picture, bring credibility to my book, but everything I said was true. So I hit him, who knows what to hit him at, about $50,000. He said, call me tomorrow, I'm going to think about it. Next day we called, and he said, I like your idea, but I've already spent too much on promoting this horse, but I like your idea. He said, I'm going to give $10,000. I said, well, can I say praise the Lord? I said, why don't you throw some stud fees into that world-famous horse? And he said, what's your address? Meaning, me and him had never met.
Yeah.
But he could tell the way I talked that I was a man of my word. And he could have been hoodooed. I could have been hoodooed. But there was never, me and him had a wonderful relationship. Book was published, sold all around the United States and different parts of the world. I never, it's all sold out now. And I remember somebody called me on a Christmas Eve one night and said, well, I'd like to talk to Kevin Kennedy. I said, yeah. He said, I just bought your book. I said, oh, great. And he said, it's a signed copy. I said, oh, you got the good one. I said, well, can you tell me how much you pay? He said, I got it at a bargain, $335. I said, wow. I got off the phone and I told Rhonda, I said, I told you one day those things would be worth something.
Yeah, well, I think the lesson in that, and it still blows my mind to this day, but you're taking chances and you're creating opportunities that weren't right in front of you, whereas somebody else would look at it and say, I can't write the book because I don't have the money.
Yes.
I can't get the car because I don't have the money. I can't buy the house.
I can't talk to that multimillionaire because I don't know him.
Yeah, yeah. But how old were you when you bought your first real estate house?
18.
18?
Yeah, he was a pretty.
How was that?
And I was.
Everyone's listening today wondering
$45. Kevin, how can you buy a house when you only got $45 a week to buy your gas and your Burger King? How do you do it? Well, I said, praise the Lord. And all these great formulas I came up with, Kevin, I say God gave them to me. I had no way to do it, but I knew a boy whose daddy was substantial. And I said, why don't me and you go in partners and go get that? Because I really thought the bank would back him because of who his family was, and that was true.
Okay. So you're leveraging relationships from the very beginning.
And didn't even know it.
Yeah. Who are some names that have helped you along the way in that journey?
Oh, man. Well, one of the craziest ones, my friend Sammy Stewart that got the other award at the Austin Peay. Sammy was working at the grocery store, IGA Guthrie. I was working in the grocery store, IGA St. Bethlehem, and he got his auctioneer license. Really, he said, I want to sell you this house. Well, good gracious, that's great. Sammy just got started, but he did me the greatest gift that ever. And some people said, well, man, he sold you. He got you. Look, he introduced me to a whole new world. Mm-hmm. You and I are sitting here today. Years later, I think it was 1977 when we bought the first. And so that's 46 years, I think, 45, who knows. But Sammy is my friend then. Sammy was my friend all these years. He's my friend today. And, did he make some money on Kevin? I'm sure he did. But the benefit of our relationship, he gave me.
Yeah.
I got a lot more than whatever he gave.
And along those 40-something years, did you ever feel like everything was just falling right in place, or were you always taking a chance?
Come on, I'll say this. Every major big deal that they've never been crystal clear. There's never been oh, man, I got the home run. They were all really, you're stepping out on faith on every one of them. But the secret is, my mother taught me to give 10% to the Lord. I was making that $12 a week. She said, well, you know how much 10% is? I wasn't too good at math, not too good at math today. I said $2. She said, no. Man, I didn't want to have to confess to my own mother. I didn't know what 10% of $12 was. But I learned the lesson. I stayed the course. I'll teach people say, I can't afford. Here's Kevin Kennedy. You can't afford not to do it.
Yeah.
And I still believe that. And so I even got past that. I was a giver to the church, advancement of the cause of Christ. And even who in the world would have ever dreamed that I would have ever won the Golden Gavel Award for the entire nation? Mm-hmm. Who would have ever dreamed that? I couldn't do it. God gave it to me. But remember, all the monies that I've gotten through that was given for the advancement of the cause of Christ.
So you're progressing your law career. You get through school. You join a firm here. Someone that I've heard you talk immensely positive about is Mr. Doug Parker, who was your mentor for a long time. Share with us a little bit about the early years in law and how did you start to differentiate yourself from others?
Well, Doug was my mentor, gracious man. I would go in and ask him, well, what do you think? How do you do this? And he would take a few minutes and give me words of wisdom. So I knew that he was smart. I knew he was a Christian. I knew I could trust him. And I sought out the wisdom of others. So if you wanted to say, Kevin, was there anything really unique? I've been to more leadership conferences. I've been to more trial conferences. I've been to more motivational than any man I ever knew. Bought more tapes, read more books. I have been a pursuer of the magic formula my entire life. So at that time, I didn't have money for books. I didn't even know about tapes. But I knew I could trust that man. And we ate, and I love him to this day. And what a great gift. You're a doctor because I was successful enough to help you when you went through, and you didn't have to worry on a lot of things that we were able to provide.
We're not going to let that slide because, I took out loans and
paid
for my own school for the record.
They said, hey, you going to pay your boys? I said, you want an old lawyer to pay or do you want young doctors to pay?
No.
Come on, that formula is easy. Everybody understands
to Mr. Parker's credit, his investment in you extended to me in non-material ways, which I'm very grateful for. Do you remember in those days being intimidated by any judges or?
Woo! I'm going to tell you, every time I stepped into the federal court, it's a whole new day in a whole new way. Yes, sir. I've been under fire more times, and I've even been in the court. I had a team with me one time. One of my lead lawyers was on there, and he got so scared. He said, "We got to give up. Let's get out of here. Just give up." I said, "Sit down." I had to take command. I'll never forget that. But I understand, we can train all day as soldiers, but when those bullets get to firing, you need a seasoned man to hold the helm and hold the team together. So I was glad that I was strong enough to do that. And in my career, I've seen many that were not strong enough to stay. But a federal court under intense fire is something else. Where did I get the cutting edge? The church. Even when I had those jury trials that were something else, I always knew, first off, I knew the scriptures. I've used those scriptures. People say, "Kev, you just hype yourself up. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens. We are more than conquerors." Well, are you hyping yourself up? I don't know. I'm speaking the truth. Do I believe every word of it? Absolutely, unequivocally. What else do I do? I'm always praying. Lord, give me the words. Give me the strength. Give me your favor. Help us in this hour of need. And when you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, here's my listeners. Every man, every woman will walk through the valley of the shadow of death. But the rest is so good. I will not fear. I like that one. I'm going into battle. Though 1,000 fall at my right hand and 10,000 at my, no harm shall come nigh unto me. I believe every word of it. So we march with confidence. I got to meet Mike Tyson at the National Trial Lawyers, and I asked him the question. And, when he went into the ring and he would win, Iron Mike, he said, "Kevin, I would see fear in their eye, and it would inspire me." And, of course, I've seen that. I've felt the trembling going in, and then I've overcome it. And any man that said when he was in the heat of battle, either his mind wasn't working right or he didn't tell you like it is. So.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned it. You said every man or woman who achieves great things is going to walk through the valley.
Yes.
And you go through it at different seasons. Was there a decade in your life where you felt like the hits just kept coming, the valleys just kept coming?
Well, I do remember some times that one time it lasted a year. And a year, who can stay down through there? And it was almost overwhelming. And so I'll say it again. The same challenges, if we live long enough, you'll face some challenges, but the story's already finished. The Bible says he'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. And I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Meaning, can you go to that valley? I did a trial one time, and this lady was fighting over a child. And I said, "Well, we're getting ready to get on the roller coaster of life. Are you scared?" I don't know why I said that, and she looked me dead in the eye. She was a young, attractive lady, and she said, "I'm not scared as long as I got you." Man, with those words, she inspired me. I said, "Let's go." And, of course, we went through there and won the case. I'll tell you one more that I'll never forget. We had a guy in there, and we was fighting over his young child. He was in the military, hadn't seen the kid hardly at all. How are you going to win a case? You hadn't even seen the kid. You just got back. And one of the secretaries was saying, "Golly, Kevin, that guy spent all of his money, and you just can't win that." Well, she made me feel bad. Did I take a chance that, everybody would say, "Well, you can't win that." So we went to court, and by George, I was on fire that day, and we won the case. He had the child, and he was so happy. I said, "Follow me." I went back to my secretary. I said, "Now ask him. Now ask him. Was it worth it? Now ask him. I want to hear you ask the question." Of course, the guy's beaming, the guy's happy, and that kid went all the way, and later went to the West Point Academy, and I kept up with him. All those years, they would send me cards. I talk about it years later. So here's something that men and women should hear me say tonight. If you're married, you need to be speaking power into your spouse, not tear them down. Tell them they're strong. Tell your husband he can outwork 10 men. Tell them, let's get it done in the name of Jesus. If you've got children, speak power into your children. The world, one of my great friends ran a college. I represented several colleges. And they said, Kevin, when you send your kids out, the world is prepared to tear them down. So when they come home, you got to build them up. I don't know that I did that enough, but of course I'm still learning. I'm still on the potter's wheel, but what I'm teaching, I will not say anything that I didn't think is in your best interest. So I'm taking this opportunity to make it real clear. If you wanted to hear the success formula for a lifetime for you and your family, immediately get in the church, get them in a Sunday school class, learn the word, get those tapes. I love those great men. You know, I didn't like to read. I still feel bad that I had to read so many books and didn't read my Bible enough, but I've corrected that. Every day when I get up, I will not leave the home till I've read the Bible. They said, Kev, first thing when I walk to the office, there's people waiting. Many days, I've got 7 to 10 people waiting on me at 7 a.m. in the morning. They said, how are you going to see them? But I'll read the Bible first. Now, I've left the house case and didn't read my Bible. That was a day I wish I'd never left the home. So you get spanked really good 1 or 2 times. Hello, come in. You won't forget it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up marriage. You've been married to my mom, one of the best blessings in both of our lives.
Okay.
How many years now?
44 in about a week.
44 years.
Yes.
We will not tell how you met her, but
we met at Austin Peay.
Yeah, your early years were with a lot of challenges. You were living in basements. You were living in somebody's shared space that they gave to you.
Yep.
She was going through school. You were going through school. She had a great career as an educator, eventually a principal for 20 years or so. And I know you briefly mentioned speaking words of encouragement to your spouse, but as your career progressed,
she became Tennessee Principal of the Year, and I was given my big horse show. I was at the World Grand Championship. I wanted her to sit there and watch me show. She was staying home and prepared. Next morning, I didn't win. I did place, didn't win, but I drove her to Nashville the next day for her interview. And so, but I would rather her win Tennessee Principal of the Year than me win the World Grand Championship. That's the way it fell.
So my question is, how do you were talking about valleys in your business.
Yep.
Every marriage comes with lots of highs, lots of lows.
I guess you're testifying. I wrote 2 books. I wrote Divorce Through the Eyes of a Christian Lawyer. They tell me it's in 150 law schools around the nation. And I wrote The Law of Relationships, Battling the Me Mentality. You know, I did the Oprah Winfrey Show that went across the Associated Press that I did more divorces than anybody in the nation did her show.
Well, tell me this. So you've seen families stay together. You've seen a lot of families fall apart.
Yes.
What would your encouragement be to someone, let's say they're in my season of life, 30s, 40s, facing one of the valleys at home.
Yep.
How important is it to stick it out, and how do you do that?
Well, here's where we get started today. There's a lot of people that do not go to church. They're going to live their life, and we're not really interested in that. And we don't read the Bible at home. That's going to be the secret. And, it's hard for a Christian couple to stay together. And but is Christ enough? He's more than enough. And so that's the first thing I would say. And yes, we have to learn to forgive. Why? God taught us to forgive. And do we have to be givers? Yes. God taught us to be givers. So if you wanted to read some of my books, man, I've got some great techniques. I don't mind telling 1 or 2.
Yeah, let's talk about the books.
I want to just help one on that one.
What book are you on right now?
Well, I'm working on my 7th publication. Yeah. I published 6 books. I published 2 coloring books. But back to the formula. If a person was in trouble and you've been married a while, everybody's got some photos. And the wife says, I want a divorce. Then I'll tell you, it's not a bad idea to go get some old photos where you were really happy and lay them out. It brings back those memories. You can relive the memories if you look at the photos. If they just refuse to look at the photos, well, they're not even trying to. But if you try, I have a lot of different techniques that were in my, I like to write the card. It's called the power of a card. You can say more in a card than you can in person. You can say more in a card than you can on the telephone. I hope you're listening. You can say more in a card than you can in a text. So you'll never forget that. It's called The Power of a Card. And so I wrote those 2 books, Divorce. I did one that was the quickest divorce you ever heard. They got in a fight. After they said I do, he stepped on her dress, tore the dress. She smacked him. They went out, and they got a divorce.
I've never heard that story.
Well, hello, come in. I also did the longest one. I think it was 62 years of marriage.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Sad.
We talk about this book. We don't wait for opportunity. We create opportunity.
Yeah, man, I hit that book. I had 4 top-notch interns, a legal assistant, and a paralegal. I'm the only man I ever knew that could actually work 6 people at the same time. So we were working on that idea. I liked it. We were rolling. And in the middle of writing this book and the brainstorm, another book came out, What's in Your Stable? Everything I learned about business. And I never will forget, there were 6 of them standing up there. And I said, stop. Everybody stop. Lay that to the side. We're going to come to this. And I took off, and we wrote the other book and actually published it before we came back.
Do you remember one lesson you learned from business or learned from horses that you took into business?
Yeah.
What's one?
One is you look at your business. Every business needs a workhorse. Every business needs a show horse, somebody that'll come in. Every business needs a racehorse. You're going to have to be faster than the competition. And if you've got a old horse and it's non-productive, a lazy horse, you need to cut that. Everything I learned about business, I learned from horses. It's a great book. I hope that you'd be glad to get it. And if you say, I can't find it or whatever, it's out there on the internet, and I've got them at the office. I'm always glad to share. It is some great formulas. I have a lot of students that all over says, can I be your intern? Can I be your intern? Can I be? And a lot of times when I've had a lot of interns over the year, I said, if you really want to know these secrets, read my book. And then I've had several, got every book read, every word. And I used to like to bring them back. I said, you've read the book, brief it. You got 5 seconds, let's go. And then they briefed me, and I knew they were on it. But it's another technique. Read, write. I wish I'd learned that when I was going to the law school. It makes your brain better. And listen, I have one of the unique talents. I can hear, out here, a lot of other men. So if we have 6 or 8 lawyers in a group and we've got a contract and everybody's trying to work it, I always have my assistant, and because I believe in the power of the team. God teaches 2 are better than 1. 3-fold cord is not easily broken. Today, we're abiding that. You got camera, you got a mic, I got a mic. Let's put it together. Let's go. That's been part of the story, the secret of Kevin. But it is no secret. And, you know, they asked me to write an article for the American Journal of Trial Advocacy. Tons of articles. They picked mine. And when they came to talk to me, they said, okay, tell us your secrets. You won these jury trials and everything. And I said, it's nothing but biblical principles. I said, you're going to reap what you sow. I remember, and they, well, that's fine, Miss Ken, that's fine. But tell us your secret. How did you do this? Everybody thinks it's more complicated than the Word of God. Yeah. Learn the Word, live the Word, preach the Word, share the Word. Go ahead.
Well, that's always been a genuine part of your spirit. You've also been a master of marketing, right?
They said that. I've had a lot of lawyers say, hey, what kind of lawyer is Kevin Kennedy? They don't ever say he's the smartest lawyer. They always say, he is a master marketer. I said, I don't know if you take that as a compliment or whatever. I always took it as a compliment.
Well, part of your marketing is this image that you've created over the years, right? From the rings to the 3-piece suit, the boots, just the whole persona. So here's one question I've gotten my entire life.
You can get the question.
Is that actually Kevin Kennedy Sr.?
I hear that a lot.
Or is it something that you've created?
Yeah. I went to the court the first time I was in court as a lawyer. There's about 30 lawyers in the line. They all had black shiny shoes. They all had blue suits. They all had white shirts. And they all had a red, some kind of tie. And I said, how are you going to pick the difference in that and anybody else? You know, if there's 30 choices, the odds of them getting you is not that great. You must separate yourself from the crowd. So I learned that in the horse show business. We wore flash and dash in the horse show business because when I came in, they would look, wear it naturally. And Elvis Presley was my hero. If you didn't know this, Elvis was inspired by Liberace. Liberace's the glitter, the glamour. And they say you've made it when they know just one name, Liberace, Elvis. And so Liberace inspired Elvis. I'm a great Elvis fan. I love him. I broke a couple of records Elvis had. Anytime you break anything Elvis has got, you are doing something. And Elvis, one of the secret things on it, he always wanted to do a movie as a lawyer. Interesting. But I loved Elvis. And at his height, he had 14 horses. At my height, they had 108. Isn't that interesting? So, but there's many records I like to look at, and he inspired me.
Where'd your fascination with jewelry come about?
Elvis?
Yeah.
You know, Elvis, he always liked jewelry, and one of my rings is very much like Elvis. And so Liberace, he was inspired by Elvis because it separated you from the crowd. And see, when I think Dolly Parton tells it, when she was so young, she was poor, so she never had shoes. So she has a big collection of shoes. Yeah. And so, of course, Elvis, everybody thought, well, you're just a bummer to keep your day job. And so when you got those success, and I learned from Zig Ziglar, celebrate your big wins. When I've had some really big wins, hello, come in, shocking wins. So I would go and splurge a little bit, and those are constant reminders of how good. Got my brother Bruce, I said, Bruce, when you look at it, he said, Kevin, all we can say is, God has been good to us. Well said.
Yeah, that is well said. Well, let's talk about parenting a little bit.
All right,
everybody's waiting to hear some good old stories.
Yeah.
So,
spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah, you didn't spare too much, especially the weed eater.
Yeah.
But here's my question.
I've got a good story.
Do you have any regrets for making us work as hard as we did?
The truth is, I should have worked you a little harder. I think you could have given your daddy a little bit more respect. Here's how one of the classic stories I tell. You know, I have parents bring their kids in. They're caught in their juvenile court, and I tell this story quite often. And because I have the opportunity to share. You know, what is an attorney? What is a counselor? Yeah, you come in and we can share some insights. I wish I had time to tell y'all all the things that I hear because it could make a difference in your life. But I never will forget, we were out there and Casey and Kenny might have been 15, 17. They were washing cars. It was freezing cold. The water was freezing on the cars. They were out there, hands almost frostbit. They came up to the house. Rhonda was standing by the door and knocked. And they said, Daddy, can we come in and warm up? I said, yeah, tonight, and slammed the door back. I wanted to see if they was going to buck or did they walk back to the cars. They started walking back to the cars and they were going to wash because you know how bitter cold your hands are. And Rhonda said, you can't do them that way. You can't. I said, just chill. I'm going to call them back in. So they got the car and I opened the door. I said, y'all come in. Here's my statement. I said, y'all know Daddy is tough on you. But remember this, the world will be tougher. Daddy loves you. But if you can work for Daddy, you can work for anybody. And I've thought about it. When Casey's had the more challenges than a man, he was prepared. That's what daddies do. They try to teach. They try to prepare because we know a coming day they'll have to stand on their own.
Yeah, there was sure a lot you prepared me for.
Yeah.
16-year-old going to pick up rent, getting chased down by dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Getting left at some houses with nothing but a weed eater and some Crystal burgers.
Yep.
One of my favorites is you made me one time ride down Wilma Rudolph in the back of a flatbed holding up a motorcycle with no straps. It was my job.
Yeah, didn't dip my motorcycle. That's right. Everybody they say, Kevin rides a motorcycle. The truth is I've had 35 motorcycles. What am I saying? Praise the Lord for? I never taught KC or Kenny to ride them. I'm glad they're not riding them. That's where you say, you can do as I say, but not as I do. But I still like a motorcycle.
Yeah. Well, you talked about it at the beginning. I want to talk a little bit more about your relationships. Some people that I know have been really important part of your life, and you've hit this, season where you're in a time of reflection. You talked to me about that a lot. I am in reflection,
yes.
You had people who are around your age who were good friends of yours for many, many years.
Yeah.
People like John Hobson, and Mark Grant, that are not with us anymore, but
Amen.
You grew up with them. How does that reflection on their friendships to you and what they meant as a part of your life allowed you to now, continue a legacy maybe on their behalf?
Well, I remember both of them when we were in school together, high school. John, he was always handsome, and Mark, and I could go on and tell you stories about him. And, of course, both of them went on and grew up as we went through the years and became well-established businessmen, and John got a brain tumor, and he came to my office. He'd been my insurance man, and we had a beautiful conversation. I'll never forget it. And we knew that his time was marching on him. And he said, well, I'll see you. And I said, well, I'll see you too, John. And he said, Kev, you're going to have to give me a hand. I can't get up by myself. And I remember touching his hand and lifting him up. And it was a profound, I was at his funeral. You played ball with his children. And some people would say, well, why does God take one man early? There's a lot about our life that we'll never understand. They have a hymn, we'll understand it better by and by. There's the hymn, trust and obey. So we're going to trust him. He knows best. How much time? I'm thrilled that we can share this today. Who knows how long this will go, but these are some profound and powerful words that I'm sharing today. And my great friend Mark Grant, he was with me all through those high school years and dating years and business years. Became an enormous success. And then when I lost them, it was a great loss. We were both all the same age. Yeah. It does put you in the reflection mode.
Yeah. Another person that I remember you speaking a lot of, and you put us around a lot as young kids, was Jimmy Terry Sr.
Yeah.
And obviously his legacy has lived on in so many ways.
Yeah. Jimmy was an amazing man. He did one of my TV shows even after he had been diagnosed with his cancer. We were at the Opryland Hotel, and he was bringing the signs. This is probably his most profound memory. And, when you're under all that kind of stuff, you don't have the strength. And he carried the signs, crossed that long parking lot, up those tall steps, did the video, and went back. And Christmas is all about Jesus. So he and I had that in common. I still have those signs.
Yeah. Is there anyone else that you remember being a big influence on you for multiple decades that just, you grew up with, and that's been part of your story? You're a hometown boy from a farm right in the middle of town, and now you've just been a part of our community for as long as I've been alive, obviously.
All these ministers that I've had that we were under, I was under Brother Roger Freeman for a long time at First Baptist. That's where you attended, and I watched you and sat under his tutelage. And John Lyda, man, what kind of men were they? They were unbelievable men. And I had the privilege to do a lot of TV shows. I did the God and Country show. I just finished it 4th of July. You talk about commitment. I did 35 years. Can I testify for a moment? God and Country, one year they called and said, well, the TV show, the management's decided we're not going to do this show. And I'm not a man to flex my muscles. I didn't want to. And it hit me like a ton of bricks because I was working for the Lord. And I said, you go back and tell them, if they choose not to fund and get this show done, then I'm going to reevaluate the Kennedy Law Firm advertising. But I didn't want to do that, but I wanted that show to go on. Of course, he came back, and you already know, we've been there. He said, we revisited it, and we'd like to continue and publish this. So 35 years. This is interesting. The first taping of the 35 years. I'm in Nashville. I do Channel 5. Been at Channel 5 now for 10 years. And my cameraman comes out. Hello, come in. Rick. He taped the first God and Country 35 years.
Oh, wow.
We got to see each other last month. What a fabulous reunion. And I love all my friends at Channel 5. They've been a lot of fun. We go to the steeplechase, and it's a different world. See, my life, I have different relationships in the law business, in the horse business, in the real estate business, in the television business. All gifts from God that allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
And the church business. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you've taught me, you mentioned it before, how grandmother, your mother, really taught you this principle of generosity, both in, in dollars, but also in time and talents.
Yes.
I've been fortunate to see it publicly. We see public acts of generosity, but I've also had the special privilege of being told privately as my years have gone on of people who've pulled me aside and said, hey, you never know what your dad blessed me with 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or last week, or whenever it was. So generosity is really a part of who you are in multiple ways. And I want to give you the opportunity again, because I think so many of us who are my age feel the squeeze and feel how much pressure it is to get to that next level. And we're always weighing generosity versus how do we keep advancing our career.
Yeah, I got you. It's called walk by faith. Does it take a lot of nerve, especially when you go beyond the church tie? Once I recognize, and I kind of really think, and I knew, the Bible says you'll never see the righteous forsaking bread nor their seed. Kevin, do you believe he's never going to forsake you? Do you believe that? I do. So I do walk by faith and not by sight. Oh, Kev, wouldn't it be wonderful? Me and my mother, Sybil, would talk. Why didn't God just give us $1 million where we didn't have to worry? And, I actually went to Nashville without 25 cents in my pocket night after night. They said, why would you do? Because we didn't have it. I refuse to steal. I won't steal. I'd rather starve than steal. And I've represented many people that were at that dilemma. Do you take food? I've represented them over the years that was caught stealing because they had no way to eat and feed. But Case, what kind of man are you? Are you going to be a man of faith, or are you not going to be a man of faith? And it's not his will. He wants us to trust him. And he's always provided. So remember my great story on the rolls. I had to step out on faith. Step out. And you said, well, Kev, you could have miscalculated. Yes, because Kevin will fail. God will never fail.
Yeah, your favorite Bible verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
You put it on a lot of stuff. You
I
sign it on my
every
birthday cards.
building. I put it in
on
concrete downtown,
Yeah.
never to be removed. Go ahead.
Tell us what it says.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And in the lowest valleys, from high school through college, I've always held on to that verse. And if I face the greatest challenge tonight, praise the Lord, as a businessman, you get under attack. And so when you go through a Christmas and you hadn't been under attack, you say, praise the Lord. I think about the men in the Bible, David, and they came in, they took all their wives, took their children. And how tough is that? And then you'd hear the devastation of war. I have a master's degree in history, emphasis in military. That always gave me a strategic mind. Some of the lawyers say, Kev, where did you come? God gave me that strategic mind. But the most important thing is to walk by faith.
Yeah, it's powerful. You told me it my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So we're going to transition a little bit, do some more fun questions. Some people send in some stuff. I know we've had a lot of meaningful content so far, but we got to talk TikTok. We got to talk some other things that have come along. So some questions have been, who's the star behind the TikTok? We know you're the face of it. How did the TikTok channel come about? Because we know you didn't find out about TikTok. Somebody gave you the idea. Tell us the story there.
Me and Sarah Sumter is the girl that works with me. She's worked with me for 4 years. And she said, well, you ought to consider this. So we're there, and so we just kind of played around. I didn't even know what TikTok was a year ago. I've been in it probably about, maybe 14, 16 months, somewhere in there. But remember this case, all my life had prepared me for that moment. So where did you get the pizzazz, or where did you get the snap? Remember when I was buying diamond ring? That was years ago. And they talk about my chair. I bought that furniture years ago. People have said, what about that building, the Kennedy building? I bought that years ago. And all my talk, fast walk, the wit, God had used me in the church. I was a music director and a youth director for 17 years. All that training. I've been a Sunday school teacher. So everything I did added. So to the lesson to all these tonight, many of you have got many years to go. So you seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. So here's when we just, I didn't know, what does it mean to have 1 million views. Well, I guess that's pretty good. And we got to looking at that, and it's kind of like people watching the stock market. Oh, man, I got $1 million. Okay, so it's rolling and it's rolling. I really didn't know, and it's 10 million. Well, I think, 10 million views, that's big. And then ultimately got 300 million views. I can't really grasp, but when I did grasp it, I was at the Kentucky Derby, not this year, but last year. We'd been up only since February. Kentucky Derby's in May 5th. And people recognized me from all these universities around the nation and literally stopped the crowd. Oh my gosh, it's Kev. Kev's got you covered. And it shocked me. There was some police up there, and it scared them because the crowd was too big. And
who came up with the Kev's got you covered?
Kev's got you covered. Our son-in-law, Joe Lincoln, calls his Kev, you need to come up with a catch line. So that's kind of how it went. And it's kind of interesting. And, everybody was calling me, Crest, and a lot of national places have said, Crest got you covered, we got you covered. And so they've taken those spins off. Well, that's great. And I'm glad to share. Yeah. One of the things about, are you worried about these law? Are you worried about... No, I never really looked at it as a competition. It's always just been a sideline. I'm glad to take pictures. One of my favorite lines, people used to come up and say, Kev, can we get a picture? I said, you got a camera. Well, that has got where it's really overwhelming. Kentucky Derby, the steeplechase, any kind of crowd.
Disney World.
If I go to the airports, that's when people really catch me. I was in Houston. So here's one of the things that you'll find really interesting. I knew the young people liked me, college age. Well, when I was with the 1,000 best trial lawyers in the nation, they all liked me. I said, wow. And there's a lot of them were older than, and they had family members. And they said, Kev? They said, yeah, get a picture. Yeah. And so I did a lot of videos for them. And okay, I will say I'm always nice. I don't want to ever turn anybody away. So there you have it.
Well, and I like the valuable lesson that you shared. You may not even have known it was a nugget of wisdom, is that really your entire life prepared you for that moment, and then you took advantage of it. And so, for those
Carpe
of us out
diem,
here,
seize the day.
Or the
that's a little Latin. You didn't know I could speak that Latin. I got a lot of language I can talk.
But you had steps in your 20s to differentiate yourself, to create a vision, something that you could talk, develop your communication skills. You eventually, had the rings, you got the chair, you got this, and then when Sarah came to you, now you took advantage of that opportunity. So for those of us in our 20s and 30s and 40s who may feel like we're
yet to come,
get that, say it.
The best is yet to come.
I feel like you've told me that time and time again. And so tell us about how that's been true on many times in your life.
Here we go. Every year, it takes me all day when we have a Christmas party for all the people that work at the Kennedy Law Firm. I write everybody a card, not just a small, I write a long card. I make it a personal card. And I've always said the best is yet to come. And year after year, I never will forget, we had a big multi-million-dollar settlement, and the lawyer said, well, we broke the record. I said, sit down. He said, I'll show you the book. I said, you didn't break the record. Yes, we did. And I said, you just set the record. We'll break it next year. And then he said, oh, this will never happen again. And the next year, we broke it. Can you speak it into existence? The Bible said, where there is no vision, the people perish. Can you see? I want to teach one more lesson. I was listening to one of the richest men in the world, and he was talking about, if you wanted a Rolls Royce, you read everything about Rolls Royce. You learn the interior, you learn the engines, you learn the color. And he says it draws you to it. And then when you know it's a deal, when that's an $800,000 car, and you know it's $800,000, and you can make the deal at $500, or you say, well, I can't pay $500. Don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do. And, some of those Rolls, they actually, I got buys on them. So you were driving a Rolls cheaper than you could buy a brand new car because you're losing money on the brand new car.
Yeah, I hear you.
Learn that formula and keep on hitting.
All right, a couple more questions from the internet. All right, Cole Taylor.
Yeah.
Crazy Cole. Jenkins
Come on, Cole. I remember when you was a baby. I was in his parents' wedding. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. So I knew him before he was a baby.
All right, Cole Taylor. What's been your favorite car
Mm-hmm. My favorite car, I'm driving a Bentley now. I really like that Bentley. The Rolls Royce, hello, come in.
Was there a car in your early years that you thought,
I
I
wanted a
finally made
Corvette.
it?
I wanted a Corvette so bad. I was sacking groceries at the grocery store, wanted that Corvette. I'd see people pull in. I said, only if I could get that Corvette. And I've owned probably 36 or so Corvettes. I got 2 Corvettes right now. But that Corvette, I said, man, that'll take you to the road to success.
Is it true that you bought Mom a Corvette and sold it before she got to
Now,
drive?
somebody will tell that, but that is true. I bought the Corvette. It was a bad dude, 4-speed, black. It was looking good. And I took it. She was working at Winn-Dixie. And I was going to law school. And you said, well, how could you do it when you were in law school? I learned I had good credit and would borrow money and buy a car and sell them, make money. And so came right back, and there was a guy saying, hey, I want to buy a Corvette. And the man that owned it said, Kev, you got that Corvette? He said, we can make some money on it. I said, boy, my wife would go cry. But, yeah, we better make that deal. So I went and got it, and she cried. She couldn't. I said, Daddy will come back again. She said, you won't ever get me one that nice again. That was pretty new, pretty nice. So
Cole also wants to know,
Yes.
what was your least favorite car?
I had a Capri one time when we was in the El Broco zone, and we were driving this Capri. Talk to me about the heat. No heat. We had what's known as a quilt. Me and Rhonda would drive that Capri. The windows would frost up. We put the quilt. You know how cold it is? And that thing had so many little vents in it, you couldn't keep the cold out. Yeah, that was my worst one, Capri.
There you go, Cole. All right, Grant Doofman wants to know, do you have any great stories from your rings, or is there one ring that's more meaningful than the others?
Well, I have a lot of great stories. I did say I bought some of these rings when they were a success, and I memorialized that. Of course, my horseshoe rings have always been a special place because I had horses ever since I was a kid. So, yeah, they are very special, and I'll wear those every day.
Yeah, we probably need to say a shout out to Terry Cochran.
Terry Cochran is my hero. He's made some of the most beautiful, beautiful jewelry I have ever seen. And, you know, I've traveled all over. I go to those big jewelry shows, and a lot of them will say, can I see your stuff? And they say, wow. But Terry's the most talented in the nation. He's right here in Clarksville, Tennessee. Big giver, gave a lot of things to different charities.
Yeah.
And I bet on a bunch of stuff in those charities.
What's your favorite thing to wheel and deal on? Rings, jewelry, houses, horses, cars?
I really, really love horses. I really, really love cars. I'll bounce between the horses and the cars.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Emily Williams, we need one good story of you and one of your 26 first cousins.
One of my 26, Emily, she's one of the sweetest cousins that we have. But I would say one of the great stories was Janice and I. We're about the same age.
Janice Bagwell.
Janice Bagwell, when we were 2 or 3, she pushed me off the porch. I wanted to go. My daddy was watching me. I got in a little pedal car. I'm only maybe 3 years old, and I pedaled that thing, and he was doing something, and they lost me. And I pedaled down the road and went to Janice. Her mother came out there screaming, and they got me. Praise the Lord, they saved me. I was a little on the bold side. And then Janice, we're still together. She and I are planning on going to the 50th Clarksville High reunion together. We went to 45 together, and we went to 40. So Janice has been a blessing all these years. And we were riding the school bus together, and her mother was killed right at the end of our road. And I was right there with Janice when the bus pulled up. We pulled by her house, and the road was covered. People from Spring Creek Baptist. We didn't know what had happened, but we knew something had happened. Janice.
Sad day, but those relationships are very meaningful. All right, last two questions from your grandkids. Kyla, our 7-year-old, she wants to know, would you rather sing or dance?
Well, I love dance. You know, when I was in the high school, I won the dance contest sophomore year. I won the dance contest junior year. Wait. There's one more coming. I'm talking about the senior. I had to go for it, win, lose, or draw. I wanted to come out of Clarksville High School undefeated. They're going to give the trophy. And yes, so and can you believe it or not, I won Dancing with the Stars here locally in Clark. at 60 years old.
What'd they call you in high school?
Well, I never will forget one time. They said, Kevin, you watching Soul Train? I said, sit down. Soul Train watches me. That's one of my favorite lines of the old days.
Oh, goodness. All right. All right. Callie, 5-year-old.
Hit it.
She wants to know, why do you love horses so much?
Well, I've always had a horse, rode a pony. When I was in the hardest time academically, I would pick up a magazine with a horse, and it gave me inspiration. And my first book, How to Make Money in the Tennessee Walking Horse Business, I had so many great business formulas. I couldn't hold them. I got to do it. And I knew that book would be a success, and it was one of my greatest successes. So I've had a lot of fun. I set the goal, Case, to own 100 horses. I never knew a man that had 100. And so I pursued it. And here's what I learned from that. It's a lot of fun when you're buying. We go everywhere, we buy it. It's a lot of fun. And then when I had to sell, because things had changed, I sold down to an all-time low of 16. That's sad. When you got down to about 55, man, I had the best I'd ever seen. So you cut from 55 down to 16, it'll really make you sad. But I love horses. But it set the prelude. I said, if I could do it with horses, I'll do it with houses. And I guess the Lord was using me all those years. And Doug Parker used to say, he said, Kevin, some of the greatest pocket knife traders, if they'd spent as much time selling and wheeling and dealing with real estate, they would have been multimillionaires. But they took a lot of time and they traded pocket knives. I learned that, and I heard that, and let's go.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fun episode. We've covered everything from a childhood in St. B, going to Spring Creek Baptist Church, being taught to be generous. We talked about law school and Austin Peay, being married to my mom 44 years. What a blessing she is to both of us. We've talked about a spirit of generosity, taking chances on yourself, believing in yourself before something's laid out before you. You got any parting words? I know you got one thing left for everybody that you got to share.
Well, if I had to share it, what is the greatest gift? Was knowing Jesus Christ. There is a supernatural. When there seems to be no way, God will make a way. I've watched him, and I love those last words, when time has passed and words are through, may I always be thought of as a friend to you. And with these challenging words, help us to learn to be a friend to the friendless, to give hope to the hopeless, and encourage the discouraged. Case, I hope you learn and teach that we'll always look down in compassion, back in forgiveness, forward in hope, and yes, always up with gratitude. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, it's been a fun one. Thank you for your time. I know that our audience has been blessed in so many ways. I finally hit the stride in life where you moved on from my dad doesn't know anything to my dad's embarrassing me to wish my dad would get off my case to now seeing all the sacrifice of so many years, the hard times, the good times, the why'd you do this, why'd you do that, and you've been a real blessing to me. You've been one of my biggest cheerleaders, and I know a lot of kids who are adults now my age to say the same thing about their parents, but I know people in our community have been blessed by you for many, many years, and it's that longevity of so many years, the consistency that you mentioned, that's really made you who you are, and I know you got a lot of years left in you.
Well, say praise the Lord. It's up to him. We're turning it all over to him.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you have made it to the end, which I'm sure you did. This was one of the episodes that was really easy to do for me, but thanks for making it to the end of this. Go ahead and share it with someone. If you heard their name mentioned, you heard some principles that you want to share that would be encouraging to somebody, I know they will. Go ahead and hit share on that. Send it to someone. Leave us some comments below, whatever you do to engage with us. Help us keep telling this great story. We've got great people like my dad, like others, like our other 50 guests that we've had so far on this show who are making our community great, positive, the best place to live in America. I'm going to keep bringing you those guests. Thank you so much. I'm Kevin Kennedy Jr. Thank you for listening to Clarksville Vibe.